What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Bronx Pinstripes Show and a very happy Thanksgiving. We're recording this Wednesday morning. Just genius by us. Put out a podcast Wednesday afternoon before Thanksgiving where everyone is just not doing dick. Maybe they're traveling, so maybe
they're traveling, bro.
I feel like people don't travel Wednesday night anymore. I feel like people travel Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. I had people I worked with that traveled yesterday because they didn't want to do the Wednesday travel. So I feel like Wednesday might be a good day to travel now. Maybe no one's on the road. Everyone already got to their destination.
Yeah, no, my mother traveled yesterday as well.
Yeah, exactly.
So picked the worst day of the last 3 weeks with weather to drive here. So
underrated travel day if you can do it. Thanksgiving morning. I did that last year. I drove to Rhode Island. What would have taken me 9 hours on Wednesday took me 2.5 hours on Thursday. Because
everybody's already there.
7 a.m. It was beautiful.
That's the move. That's the move if you're just trying to get in and get out. You know what I mean? Like if you
stayed over, but once we got there, but
there's time before that you're not putting in. So I mean, the time the day of and then staying till the next day is pretty much a given there. But it's because it's a Thursday, you're almost expected to get another day in there. So if you're driving up day of, it's a good move if you don't like where you're going.
Or you don't want to sit in 95 traffic through Connecticut, which is just a parking lot. Connecticut, no one lives in Connecticut. People just drive through Connecticut. And the camera's zooming in and out on you again. You got to fix
I'm not
this
even
thing.
moving. It's a different camera.
Anyway,
it's a different camera.
We've got a few things to talk about today. We did the GM episode last week. Hope you guys enjoyed it. We got some backlash, I would say, from some of our picks. Some people agreed with us. Some people didn't agree with us. That's the nature of what we do. We got a couple things to talk about. We're going to talk about Hall of Fame announcements. And if we have time, we're going to do a real stupid segment about Thanksgiving food and Yankees players.
Because podcasts.
Because the Yankees have not really done anything, unless you count trading Jake Bauers to the Brewers for a couple minor league players that we won't see for another 9 seasons is doing something.
Yeah, I mean, but you get something for Jake Bauers, and it's a quote win. It's nothing, but it's a win if you get
Cash God.
If you hit light, Cash God, Jake Bauers. So it's either you non-tender and just part ways, or you get something and stack your minor league system a little bit, see what happens.
Yeah, the 2 players they got 2 young minor league outfielders. Jace, I'm assuming Jace, Jace Avina, who's 20 years old, played in Single A in the Brewers system last season, hit 233, 373, 442 for a 134 WRC plus. And then Brian Sanchez, 19 years old, who played in the Dominican Summer League this past summer, hit 297, 414, 446 for a 129 WRC plus. And the key here is that you're basically taking Bauers off the 40-man roster. You weren't going to obviously pay him the $1.5 million he's going to get in arbitration anyway. And you're adding 2 players to your minor league system that are not Rule 5 eligible yet, so they don't need to go on your 40-man roster.
19 and 20 years old, so you're seeing how you could possibly develop. It's much ado about nothing until maybe there's something. But we will find out, and like you said, in 5 years, if we hear those names again, if we hear about another Sanchez rising up from the Dominican Republic, we'll know.
We'll know, and hopefully it'll be different this time. The Yankees also are in agreement with Yerry De Los Santos for a minor league deal. He was he released by the Pirates?
Yeah, he cleared waivers. It looked like,
waivers,
and then he agreed to a deal with the Yankees. So this is again minor moves here, but he fits the mold of what Cashman and the pitching coaching staff, the coordinators of the pitching program in the New York Yankees are looking for. Kid's got a power sinker and control problems. So they're going to try to harness those control problems and see what they can do with this sinker as a reliever. He's got 2 options, I think, left on remaining. So he's a guy that you'll see come up and down. And if he has a good camp, wouldn't be surprised if you see him as part of the bullpen. But I think what they're trying to do is that they see a guy like Abreu, they like the promise of him. They're no longer in partnership with Abreu because he was non-tendered, and now they're trying to fill that spot with another guy that they can essentially see some of the good things that they like, identify some of those traits that they like within relief pitchers, and then mold them to how they do things in the New York Yankees system. And to his credit, this is the one area, as we've discussed many times that Brian Cashman has found a tremendous amount
Yeah.
of success, the bullpen. So yeah, maybe he wouldn't be surprised if this kid was a player.
Yeah. Cashman has been able to fill the bullpen with, at worst, league average arms. And that might sound like it's a slight, but I think that is actually a more difficult thing to do than we realize, because I think there's bullpens all around the league where after you get past the top couple guys, you're really rolling the dice. And while no one feels good, necessarily if the Yankees have to rely on one of these guys in a close 7th, 8th, or 9th inning, they have been able to get quality innings in the middle innings out of these back of the bullpen guys, the guys that rotate down to Scranton, rotate back up whenever you need a fresh arm. So De Los Santos, add him to the list. I think it's also interesting, the last sinker baller with control problems they got from Pittsburgh was Clay Holmes, and look what he became. Obviously, Clay Holmes is someone put on Brian Cashman's win list that he really developed into something. So yeah, this might be another one. And you mentioned Albert Abreu being non-tendered. Also, Lou Trevino, who was acquired last year at the deadline, non-tendered. He was going to be making over $4 million in arbitration. He's going to be out this season anyway, or most of the season, because I think he had surgery in May, if I remember correctly. So you're looking at a delayed start for him. And Anthony Meiswitz, who we saw for a couple games last year, who's also got non-tendered.
Much ado about nothing with them non-tenders. Yeah, exactly. The Abreu is. We talked about him in the GM episodes. Like I think we both non-tendered him.
Yeah, like
he's a guy that had stuff, but he was, the control issues were just not something you need to deal with at this point. When you have this many available right-handed arms that throw in the high 90s that have control issues, like that allure of the high 90s fastball is. It's just not there unless you can control it. If you can control it, then yeah, big deal. If you can't control it, then you're just a guy now. You're a jag. Whereas 5-10 years ago, that was a big deal and you had a much longer leash. Today, not so much.
Around the league, Brandon Woodruff was non-tendered, which is not surprising because he had shoulder surgery in October, and that's going to take him out for the entire season this year. If it was at some point earlier in the season, I could have seen the Brewers sticking with him so they could try and get him back for the second half of the year, but you're looking at an entire season missed for Woodruff. However,
this is Nathan Eovaldi.
Exactly. I expect him to get someone to sign him to a multi-year deal, basically saying, we're going to pay you for this year, which all you're going to be doing is rehabbing, because we know we're going to get value out of you in year 2 and maybe even year 3, depending on how long the contract is. Because Woodruff has been an excellent pitcher for a number of seasons for the Brewers.
Yeah. Honestly, like this is the type of move that I would love if the Yankees made, because it doesn't hurt us right now. We know what going into it, what this is. This is a play for next year, and there's upside. You're probably going to get a bargain. So I have no problem with it.
It could hurt you money-wise. If there's a number they're trying to hit, Woodruff does not add anything to this year's roster. So if you add him, he's not going you're not going to talk. It's going to still take $10 million to get him. Like the AAV of that contract is still going to be like between $7, $8, and $10 million.
Yeah, but again, if they're going over this number, if they're hitting
I
above
agree.
The last threshold, then you make that play.
What if they're trying to stay under that number though? Then
they're
you're
not going to
do
it. But I'm saying if money is not if this doesn't become a deciding factor on somebody else, which it should not. This is an investment into the future. Understanding that you're going to probably pay a couple extra points because of the luxury tax. This is a very low risk, high reward move that would pay off in 2025. So we forget about it, and then bam, spring training 2025. We got Woodruff. They're vying for a rotation spot that could be a 1, a 2 or a 3, or even a high end 2.
It's funny because it would be funny if that's like their first signing this winter, because everyone would be like, "Oh, Woodruff. Oh, wait a second, we're not going to see him for another year and a half."
Yeah, but I mean, as the New York Yankees have to play for the future as well. So this is one of those moves that, again, doesn't affect next year, shouldn't affect next year.
Get him back for the playoff run.
Yeah. Well, yeah, just set our expectation completely that you're never going to see him, not even in the dugout. Like he's not going to step foot on Yankee Stadium soil until 2025 when he breaks camp.
Yeah, exactly. Because Yeah, you get him back. You'd be a Frankie Montas situation.
I don't want to
Bring him
hear
in.
about warehouses in Manhattan and and like
No, he's ahead of. You don't want to hear about ahead of schedule. You don't want to hear him being ahead of schedule.
I want to hear nothing about it. I want to
He
completely
looks
forget
good.
about him.
He's looking good, Scott.
I don't want to hear best shape of his life. I want to hear nothing about this. I want to hear nothing. And then all of a sudden, whoa, Brandon Woodruff, he's here.
Yeah, it's an interesting option, especially when you consider we've been talking about all the pitching on the market this year. Nola was the first domino to fall, and he got a 7-year, $172 million deal, which is a $24.5 million AAV. I'm not surprised by the $24.5 million AAV. I am a little bit surprised by the 7 years because that takes him through his age 37 season. I think the comps we were looking at when we were going through our GM plans was 5 to 6 years for him at around 25 million AAV. So if this is setting the market, now you're looking for someone like Jordan Montgomery, who's the same age, doesn't have the track record as Aaron Nola. I fully understand that. But you're looking at minimum 5 years for Montgomery, probably a 6th year to get Jordan Montgomery at around $24 million AAV.
It's really close.
A lot of money.
Jordan Montgomery is fired up when he saw this contract because if you look at the two players, Aaron Nola definitely has a longer track record of success, but he's shown to be durable. He's shown to be able to get you innings, pitch in big moments. And Jordan Montgomery, if anybody has increased their stock more, I'm not sure who it is because that man bounced around to different markets, and every single market that he was in, besides the one that he was being tortured by pitching coaches, he succeeded. And at the highest stage, he succeeded and went out and won and really you could make an argument that he's the same age, but he's younger in his career, less innings.
There's a real argument that who's going to be better. Who's going to be better over the next 4 years? There's a real argument for Jordan Montgomery.
Yeah, for sure. And he's got the same, same consistent trait in that he's a reliable, dependable guy who can get you innings. He's a horse. So yeah, I think his market right now is as high as it can be. So good.
I don't know, Logan, if you can do a quick Google search on if there were any future contract projections for Jordan Montgomery before leaving the Yankees, but it would have been when he hits free agency. He's looking at like a 2-year, $18 million deal. And now he's going to get $150 million on the free agent market. That is
the best thing that happened to him.
A hockey stick trajectory for Jordan Montgomery over the last year and a half. Good for him. Yeah. He better be sending all sorts of thank you gifts to Brian Cashman.
Right. Or I could have gotten this a little earlier if you had just, released the hounds and let me pitch.
I forget if we talked about this in the GM episode. Did you guys consider signing Montgomery?
No.
We gave it a brief consideration because, I've talked about how I don't like bringing guys back, but I don't even consider that being like, oh, here's a second chance Montgomery, because I don't think he failed at his first chance. I don't think he ever got to that level where there was expectations on him here with the Yankees. But I did like the idea when I thought it was going to be maybe 5 years, $100 million, signing Montgomery because of his durability. And I'm not worried about, can he pitch in New York? And I think that is a consideration whenever you're signing a free agent. We saw last year with Rodon. At least I know Jordan Montgomery's going to come in here. Yeah, there's going to be more expectations on him, but I'm not worried if he can handle pitching in New York.
Yeah, that's fair.
But
we didn't consider him.
So I just found this article from May 15th, 2022, talking about should the Yankees
before the trade.
Should the Yankees extend Jordan Montgomery? And basically just talks about, all his underlying positive metrics that he's always had. And then it says, could the Yankees jump the gun on that and offer Montgomery 4 years this offseason and $65 to $66 million? Would Montgomery listen?
Wow, that would have even been a pretty large contract for what Jordan Montgomery had done to that point in his career.
But what did you just get finished saying about when we were talking about Kyle Gibson? Is that he got a 1 year, $12 million deal and 36 years old. So if you're looking at a younger guy that has had success, and to that point, he did have success in New York. You're looking at, he was probably going to get around 17 million.
But that's 15. Yeah, that's a 4 for 60 is a $15 million AAV for what at the time was our number we thought Montgomery's ceiling was like a number 4, a good number 4 pitcher, right?
4.3 at this most, yeah.
And what we were talking about before the podcast was I forget who was surprised by the AAV that Kyle Gibson signed for, which is $12 million with the Cardinals. And what he can do is you just slot him into the back of your rotation. He pitches 30 to 32 starts and gives you 5+ innings every single time. For a roster and for a team, the value in that is immense. Is he going to go out there and shove the bats down the other team's throat? No. But guess what? You don't have to worry about it, and that's definitely worth $12 million rather than rolling the dice on another guy coming up through your system, or do we need to do an opener for this start, or do we need to do this bullshit for this start? No. Kyle Gibson's going to go out there. He's going to give up 3 runs in 5 1/3 innings and call it a day.
It brings consistency to rotation. But to the fairness of Jordan Montgomery, he elevated himself out of that conversation and now has put himself into on most clubs, he's a number 2. He could be a number 2 from what you saw.
Signing him to be a number 2. I guess had the Yankees signed him, it would be like a number 2-3 because of what Rodon wasn't last year. Or if the Yankees do sign him, I think. But yeah, you're signing him based on what he did with the Cardinals and with Texas. Yeah, number 2 pitcher.
Mm-hmm. So good for him.
Yeah, good for him. $150+ million for him coming in this offseason. Good for Jordan Montgomery. So we did mention the Cardinals signing Kyle Gibson. They also signed Lance Lynn. And there's also been a couple of, I don't want to call them rumors, articles, headlines, because it's been slow news around the league, that Ohtani might not consider coming back as a pitcher, which obviously completely changes what he would be, what his value would be. I don't know.
Doesn't this feel like a free agent narrative set by owners? Because
let me ask you a question.
All that does is drive a price down. Why in the hell would he say anything about that?
If it drives even remotely down. It drives the price down, but it's not like the price is going to be low. So it's like he's looking between $350 million or $500 million. I understand there's $150 million difference there, but it's not like he's not going to get a contract because he's not pitching. If Shohei Ohtani said, I'm not going to come back as a pitcher, I'm going to focus on hitting, and I'm going to be a great corner outfielder, would that make you more interested in signing him if you're the Yankees? Because I think it would.
I don't think it would make me more excited for him. If he was going to play the outfield next year, then yeah, it's a different story. If he's a DH,
that's what I'm saying.
But the fact that he's not pitching doesn't change that. He could still say he's going to play the outfield, whether he's intending on pitching or not. Why not? What's the difference there? If he's not pitching, I think he might as well play baseball.
I see what you're saying, but I think if he's intending on pitching in 2025 and that's what he's eyeing for, he's just going to continue to DH while he's getting his body and arm ready to come back as a pitcher.
Well, but that's the thing. His body is going to tell him when he can even go out and play the field, because whether he says I'm going to not pitch in beyond 2024, it actually doesn't change 2024 very much for you as a player, because he's still going to be a DH, because his physical limitations due to the surgeries and such will, get him out of the outfield anyway. So it's kind of the same story, which to me leads credence to the rumors that he's potentially looking at a short-term deal so that he can actually get his full value on the market. Because I believe none of the rumors that say he's not going to pitch. It makes no sense for him to say that at all at this particular point. In fact, it's the last thing he should say as a guy who's trying to get a free agent contract. So, what he is next year is a DH. That's what we all understand. What he is beyond next year, that is the interpretation and, behind closed door meetings and for them to know. But I don't think it changes his value for next year. So no, if we're looking at 2024, I'm still on Juan Soto.
I for some reason, I thought his first year with the Angels, he played more outfield than he did. He's only played like 16 career innings in the outfield.
But where did he play when he was in Japan? Did he play the outfield more?
I don't know the answer to that question.
I thought he did. Logan, can you see that? Like what he played defensively?
They have the DH in Japan.
Yeah. So but I don't think it changes the conversation for what he is for 2024. So whether he's looking at a short-term deal or he's looking at something with, player opt-outs and options for him to, get out if he does decide to pitch. Like those to me make a lot more sense if I'm Shohei Ohtani than saying anything about not pitching in the future. That would be absolutely asinine.
There'll come a point in time where he's not going to pitch anymore and he'll just focus on hitting.
Sure.
But I think
that'll be after he signs a goddamn contract.
And I think that'll also come after a few more years of pitching and before he realizes this is not sustainable. I think.
Yeah, I mean, I honestly, when we were talking about him when he was coming over, I didn't think after he had a little twinge in the elbow, I thought that was it.
Right.
But to his credit, he came back and pitched at a high level too. So he's a freak. That's the only way to describe him. He's a freak of an athlete. So I would put nothing beyond it. And you know what? If he focused on the outfield, I don't care. I don't even care what Logan comes up with. If he says 2 games or he says 20 games or he says 300 games, Shohei Ohtani will probably be a damn good outfielder. He's got a cannon, and you're telling me he's got the athleticism to play the outfield for sure right now.
Sure.
And you're telling me that guy can't track balls down in the outfield? Bullshit. Like he could do anything he wants.
Well, that's why I was thinking if he's just like, I'm dedicating myself to be a left fielder, I'm like, well, that changes the conversation for the 2024 Yankees, because the whole reason both of our GM plans lean towards Soto is because of the roster flexibility that Soto can provide you not only this year, but in future seasons, because you have Stanton clogging up the roster and then signing Ohtani is another DH, obviously a fantastic DH, but he's a DH. If he can play the outfield though, that's a little bit different.
Well, he can play in the outfield.
Of course he can play in the outfield. He's, like you said, if someone can pitch and hit at that level,
unicorn.
I know he can play the outfield. I'm not questioning that.
I'm literally, because I was just searching to see if I could find any stats on him playing the outfield, and I can't, because I can't get like game logs from when he was in Japan. But I did find a highlight reel of him playing right field and just gunning guys down. I just sent it in the chat. He'd be fine. Not be fine. He's done it.
Would he be a better left fielder than Juan Soto? Probably.
He's more athletic.
Yeah.
He's got a better arm. So yeah, he would.
What's his sprint speed? Do they have Ohtani sprint speed from running the bases? It's probably 90th percentile because he's.
I think it's 99th.
Oh, great! It's 99th.
But let's see. Sprint speed. Oh no, 63rd this year.
Okay,
this past year.
Good enough.
75th in 2022.
Because it's when that guy gets going.
91st in 2021.
I bet when he gets going, his first, him scoring from first is up there with anybody. But he probably
because he's got long legs. He's got long strides, long legs. So that's good for tracking balls down in the outfield.
Yeah, it's about like what his twitch is. Is his twitch, is he twitchy in the outfield? Probably. Again, like I put nothing past him.
So that's why I would love it if the whole conversation just gets flipped on its head and it's like, boom, the Yankees are signing left fielder Shohei Ohtani. That's just that completely changes everything. If that would be,
but again, is his arm in any shape to play left field next year? That's the thing.
That's true. Yeah,
that's what I'm talking about. Like I don't think any of this changes the narrative for 2024 because his arm, again, this is an important piece of his baseball future as far as earnings, and he's not going to risk it just to play left field for one season. He's not. He's going to DH. Sure. I mean, look at Bryce Harper. Bryce Harper he was playing first base.
Yeah, and a good first base. I mean, I don't know.
And Shohei Ohtani could play first base probably.
I don't know what the advanced metrics say on Harper at first base, but he looked fine to me.
I mean, he's a former catcher. He caught in college. He's going to be able to play first base.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to our favorite annual discussion about the Baseball Hall of Fame and the injustices of the Baseball Hall of Fame. What did we forget?
The Yankees have a new bench coach.
Oh, right.
Brad Ausmus.
Brad Ausmus.
Yeah. They actually went out and hired a guy. And when you look at Brad Ausmus, new Yankees bench coach, it's not who I wanted. That's not who I wanted at all. I wanted to anoint our guy.
What's
Mike
the
Harkey
history with him and Boone? I know there's got to be a history with Aaron Boone.
No, but there is a Yankees history if you look back and you start connecting the dots and start playing Kevin Bacon. So he after he was with the Angels, after he was with the Tigers, he went and took a front office job as an assistant to Billy Epler. Billy Epler, as we know, is a Brian Cashman disciple, still connecting the dots there. There's a connection with Brian Cashman specifically. So, Brad Ausmus is known, obviously played for a long time, is known as a defensive catcher.
Yeah, I like having that catcher mentality though back in the dugout. That's good.
Okay. It's fine. He had what? He had he played when he managed the Tigers, they went to the playoffs, right? His first season. And then the remaining 3, I believe he missed the playoffs.
I was just trying to pull up his manager record. Baseball Reference has that. Yeah, here it is.
But he's got manager chops again. So you're adding a guy that's got manager chops. He's got experience. He's been there. Don't hate it. Maybe hold on. Maybe Brad Ausmus developed a relationship with Billy Epler and Shohei Ohtani with the time with the Angels and has something to say about that.
Now you're talking. Yeah. So yeah, in 2014 with the Tigers, his first year as manager, they won 90 games, and then they totally went the other way, won 74 games the next year. Did rebound in 2016 to win 86 games. Did they make the play? They didn't make the playoffs in 2016 with 86 wins. And then 64 in 2017. And then he had a couple years off, and then Angels, as you mentioned. Okay,
so I got it. I know what's happening. Okay. And this is something that I predicted.
Hold on. Tinfoil hat time.
Yeah, this is something that this is all true. This is something that I predicted in October, I think, of last year, when Nathaniel Hackett was when the Denver Broncos were just struggling mightily at that point. And I said, okay, the Jets, looking at the Jets, their offensive coordinator was Mike LaFleur. Awful coordinator. I'm like, all right, here's what's going to happen. Nathaniel Hackett's going to get fired in Denver. And then he's going to take the offensive coordinator job at the Jets purely to lure Aaron Rodgers over to the Jets when he doesn't when they make a trade with Green Bay. All of this before anything happened. It was the greatest prediction I've ever had in my entire life. All of this happened. So when you're looking at Brad Ausmus now, there's a relationship with Ohtani clearly behind the scenes. And this is the way to lure him there. You bring a guy that he respects and knows and trusts. And now we can have a conversation that we didn't have the opportunity to have before. Now there's a conversation and they can woo him. So let's see what happens.
You know, another way to lure him and woo him?
Money. Mm-hmm. Dollars. But a guy like Shohei Ohtani is going to get dollars from somewhere. You got to make sure that the situation is right. And you got to make sure that you're selling him on what the dream is. And a guy that has his ear, obviously, is a step in the right direction and a leg up on other folks. So again, he wants to feel wanted, but he also wants to feel safe. He wants to feel like he's got a comfortable place.
That's why he signed in Anaheim when he came over from Japan.
He had a good relationship with Billy Epler. They spent countless hours over in Japan, talking with him, recruiting him with his family. So there was a relationship established. And if you don't believe that, I'm kind of talking out of my ass here, but I'm also kind of not. I have no idea. I have no idea what the relationship is between Ausmus and Ohtani. I have no idea. But if Ausmus was as connected and close with Epler, who did have a relationship with Ohtani, then there are dots to connect.
How surprised would you be if Ohtani does not take the biggest contract this winter?
I would not be totally surprised because I think it's going to be huge, and no matter what. So I think that he's going to get what he wants in the situation, and he will get paid in that situation. Whether it's a difference of, 5 to 10, it really doesn't matter at the end of the day when you're talking that big. And plus the optionality in the contract, I think, is also going to be important for him.
Yeah, and it does. I know a lot of Japanese players love to play on the West Coast because it is that much closer to Japan. So I don't know if that's still a factor. But.
Well, there's also some, very good Japanese players that have come to the Bronx and played extremely well too.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. All right. Ready to talk about the Hall of Fame?
Can't wait for Ohtani to be our DH and get to release Giancarlo Stanton. Yeah, let's talk about the Hall of Fame.
So we've got a couple of first-time appearances for some players here and some returning players. Usually what we do is we just bitch about the injustices of the Hall of Fame because It has become that. Yet we're still passionate about it. Every year I feel like we end the conversation with, I'm not going to care about the Hall of Fame anymore. And then it rolls around, the ballot is released the next winter. Like super passionate about it again. For whatever reason, the Baseball Hall of Fame just does that to you. Got a couple first-time players. Adrian Beltre, Chase Utley, Joe Mauer, David Wright, Bartolo Colon, and then a bunch of list of guys that I don't think have any chance of getting in. Matt Holliday, Adrian Gonzalez, Jose Reyes, Jose Bautista, Victor Martinez, James Shields, and Brandon Phillips. Who do you want to talk about first?
Well, I think Beltre is interesting. Let's talk about him first because there's a lot of conversations now. After Mariano did it and got the unanimous vote, I think there's a lot more people speculating on why that happened and why it shouldn't happen again. And if you're looking at the numbers that Adrian Beltre has, he's got the categorically consistent statistics that are of a Hall of Famer, right? He's got
except when he played in Seattle for 4 years. 5
okay,
years.
fine. But no. I'm talking about long term. He's got 3,000 hits and he's got 450 home runs.
Yep, one of 8 players.
And he's one of the best third basemen that have played defensively. You get that guy. I don't care what his name is. You put those two numbers up with the Gold Gloves that he has. I don't even know how many Gold Gloves he has. I'm just assuming he's got multiple Gold Gloves. Then that person's a Hall of Famer. Like done, because people that
6 Gold Gloves.
Anybody that has eclipsed those numbers are in the Hall of Fame that are not implicated in any steroid thing. And when you look at that number, and so therefore he should be unanimous, right? Because of what's happening. And I think that conversation's happened a lot more ever since Mo got in and Jeter was 1 away, or Griffey was 1 away. Were they both 1 away?
Griffey was 1 or 2 away and Jeter was 1 away. And
so when you look at that though, and I think that focus, the lens was focused on them a lot more now. And the voters are just getting younger.
So I understand that point, and I do think it's silly. Like, you're either a Hall of Famer or you're not. So unanimous or not, like whatever. It's like it's a whole rabbit hole of a conversation. But when you start to talk about guys that get 95+% of the votes, they are not only superstar talent, but also a little bit transcend the sport. Ken Griffey Jr. transcended the sport of baseball. Derek Jeter transcended the sport. Mariano Rivera did the same thing, even though he was a closer. There had been no player like that in the history of baseball. And there'll probably be never a player like that in the history of baseball again. There's been a dozen third basemen to the quality of Adrian Beltre, even if they don't have the total career numbers as him.
Which is important.
It's important, but it's not like Adrian Beltre transcended the sport of baseball. He was never the best player in the sport on any given year. He was a great player for many, many years, but he was never the best player in the sport. You can argue he was never even the best player at his position in any given year because he played in the same era as Alex Rodriguez. And yeah, I know Alex Rodriguez did all the steroids in Florida, but he was a better player than Adrian Beltre.
Yeah, but exactly. Aided and abetted. But
what?
I mean, that's what.
Adrian Beltre clean? Can you say that?
He's not, I can't say anybody's clean, but I can say that he hasn't been implicated. And that,
I also don't give a crap important. About being implicated with steroids there could be 4K footage of you being injected in the ass. Did you entertain me on the baseball field? Yes. Great.
So when you're looking at the way that the Hall of Fame works too, it's rooted in precedent. So the fact that you got 2 guys that were damn near unanimous, that everybody agrees should have been unanimous, Jeter and Griffey, that were not, and then Mariano, who rightfully so was, you now have, it's happened, right? It's happened. Yeah. Now it's going to happen because you know that the voters are like, okay, the first guy went down, the first domino fell, now that they will continue. And when you see certain numbers, particular numbers that are almost unobtainable in today's with the way that today's game is, you're in. Whether you're 95%, 94%, 100%, the fact that the precedent is there now, I think you're going to see another 100%, and possibly
it's not going to be one of these guys though. None of these guys are getting 100%. I think the next
you could 100% make the argument that Beltre is.
The next conversation, I don't think you can. The next conversation of 100% is Albert Pujols.
Again, you're using a bar that I don't think is real.
What do you mean?
You're using a transcending of the sport type of thing, and
I'm also just using.
I don't think it goes that deep. I just think the precedent is set now that one guy made it, and now there's going to be other guys who have. If you have those numbers, here's the problem. The problem is that in order for people, and this is the Jorge Posada, this is the absolute atrocity of Jorge Posada not being on the ballot beyond 1 year. If you don't vote for some of these guys to actually get the lobbying and be able to build up a case for the Hall of Fame, then they're done. So some of those votes that are potentially going to go towards that 100%, that absolutely should be 100%, are going to go to other people to keep them on the ballot because the system is flawed as shit.
So
that's the reason why the 100% doesn't happen. And that is one of the big reasons why 100% won't happen when it should.
Adrian Beltre's best season was 2004 with the Dodgers. It was his free agent year. He finished second in the MVP voting. He hit 48 home runs, and he had 163 OPS plus. His next best season was with Texas in 2014, so it was separated by a decade, in which he had a 144 OPS plus. Albert Pujols had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 straight years. Let me finish. Albert Pujols had 8 straight seasons better than Adrian Beltre's best ever career season. They're not in the same conversation. They're just not.
They're both Hall of Famers.
Yes, they're probably both Hall of Famers.
That's the conversation.
But they are much different.
You're actually
levels of players and level of superstars. The impact that Albert Pujols had is much greater. I'm not contradicting myself.
Yes, you are.
Adrian Beltre was a really good player for a really long time. Albert Pujols was a generational talent, generational player. Adrian Beltre, not that.
Is he a Hall of Famer?
Adrian Beltre? Yeah, but I don't get excited about him.
I don't give a fuck. Should every person who has a Hall of Fame vote for him in the Hall of Fame? Because he's a Hall of Famer. Answer that question. Just answer that question. Yes or no.
Are we changing the way voting is going for all future years? Because there has been, like you said, there's a precedent been set. One guy's got a unanimous vote. Many guys have been a handful of votes short. And then there's guys that scrape in on their 10th ballot. And the reason that happens is because you have Mariano Rivera, the best player ever at his position in the history of baseball. And then you have a guy who was a really nice third baseman or a really great center fielder for a number of years that gets into the Hall of Fame. And they should have a distinction. I do believe that they should have a distinction.
Okay, but that goes down to then someone not voting for him, which is wrong. Yes?
It's not wrong under the context at which the baseball voting is
Why would they not vote for someone who's not as definitive? So go through this list again, right? You're looking at who would you leave off this ballot? If you're saying Adrian Beltre is one of the guys to leave off the ballot, then you're crazy. To leave off.
Because you only have 10 votes, right? You only have 10.
So you're telling me that's 10 people that you, as a voter, you're putting in 10 people.
I'll tell you
who Adrian Beltre.
I would vote for Adrian Beltre.
Of course you would, because he's a Hall of Famer.
But I also think there's a difference between Adrian Beltre and Albert Pujols and Mariano Rivera. Do you agree?
Yes. Their statistics tell you that. The story and their careers tell you that. The voters and the percentage that they are voting to get these guys into the Hall of Fame, the most distinguished place in theory of baseball accolades, shouldn't be any bearing on the way that we look at them. Their career speaks for themselves. That's the whole point of this.
Okay.
You want to put them in a different place, in a different wing in the Hall of Fame? Yes.
Different color plaque or something.
Fine.
Smaller
but they're
plaque.
in the Hall of Fame. It doesn't
barely
say that,
read it.
But that doesn't mean that that Adrian Beltre should be a 99 or 97% because some schmuck decided to put 10 people ahead of Adrian Beltre. It makes no sense.
Well, no, you wouldn't. No, you don't have to vote for 10. You can vote for 1. You can vote for 5.
Even stupider.
If
you put someone else besides Adrian on this list. If you are telling me that someone's ahead of it, unless you're looking at
I would vote A-Rod, Manny above Adrian Beltre, definitely. I think they are more. I would rather see.
But you're a steroid guy, so those.
Not a steroid guy. I'm a use my eyes guy. Okay, and I understand Manny and A-Rod both did steroids, but when they were on the baseball field, way better, way more exciting than Adrian Beltre. Literally, if Adrian Beltre didn't have the stupid hat thing, don't touch my head, I don't think anyone would really give a shit about Adrian Beltre.
It's such a ridiculous argument that you're making right now, because if Adrian Beltre stuck himself in the ass with a needle, then you'd be talking about this completely different, which is exactly why those motherfuckers are not in the Hall of Fame.
What do you mean I'd be talking about him? I'm saying I would vote for Adrian
if Adrian
Beltre.
Beltre did what Alex Rodriguez and Manny Ramirez did, then his career would be that much more.
How do you know?
Talking about him?
How do you know he didn't do steroids? You don't know that.
I don't know that. You're right. I don't know who did and who didn't, besides what I read and what I interpret. But again, if he was a known steroid guy, his numbers would be inflated.
Maybe the numbers we're looking at were inflated by steroids.
You can't get that. You can't go there though.
Okay. Well, then why did he have a career year in 2004 and then fall off the face of the earth in Seattle and then magically get better again when he left Seattle?
Well, he was surrounded by a lot of steroid guys when he was in Texas.
No, he was in Texas, the last stop in his career.
No, the 2004, where was he?
Dodgers.
Sorry, the Dodgers. Who was on the Dodgers team with him?
Eric Gagne, who I know did steroids. Other than that, I don't know who was on the 2004 Dodgers.
Yeah, they're
David Weathers was like the godfather of steroids on the East Coast, and he was a pitcher.
That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the lineup. What lineup was he in when he was doing this in 2000? Anyway,
Sean Green was Sean Green on the 04 Dodgers.
The point is that if you're telling me that there are other people that are above him based on qualifications, if you're putting Alex Rodriguez and Manny Ramirez in, okay, fine. If that's what you believe, but you're also putting Adrian Beltre in too.
Yes, I said that. My ballot.
So therefore it should be 100%.
My ballot.
Because you're trying to put a distinction on the player based on how the voters are how the percentage of voters, and that's ridiculous. That is going against everything you talk about. You're labeling the player based on the way the voters are voting, and that is against how we have talked about this for years. You're falling into your own fucking trap.
No, it's not.
Yes.
I've never said anyone who gets into the Hall of Fame should be 100% or not. Like it's a pass fail.
No, but you're distinguishing the fact that the voters put them in as 100%. It's not because of their ability. It's not. It's just not. We've seen it. Griffey, not. Jeter, not. Mariano, yes, okay, great. But why did one and not the other? So you're telling me we need to look at Mariano different than we look at Babe Ruth.
I think that
it's ridiculous.
The way to fix this, we've said this before, is don't limit the number of players you can vote on, because what writers do is they lobby for players. And so in order to keep guys above a certain threshold, they don't vote for Derek Jeter because they know everyone else is going to vote for Derek Jeter, but I need to vote for John Smith to keep him on the ballot another year.
Right. But
so don't limit it to 10. You can vote for as many
again,
people as
man, you're then saying that if that's the case,
it would it might fix the unanimous thing.
No, because what you're saying, if you're using that, then you use the bottom half of your ballot for that purpose. Okay. But the other 9 guys that you have the ability to vote for, you could do anything you want. And if Adrian Beltre is not one of those 9 people, or call it 5 people, and you want to keep 5 people on the ballot, then what are we doing? And if you don't use all of your votes and you're only using it to keep Nick Swisher on the ballot, and you're not voting for Adrian Beltre, then you should be stripped of your voting ability, because that's asinine.
Then if you don't limit it to 10, you can then vote for Adrian Beltre, and then you can still vote for whatever, Bartolo Colon, if you want to keep him on a ballot.
You can still do that with 10. There are not 10 Hall of Famers on this list. There are not 5. There are not 6 Hall of Famers.
What if you want to keep 3 guys on the list, and then you want to vote for some
6
other guys?
Vote for 6 that you believe are Hall of Famers, and vote for the other 3 to keep them on the ballot. I think 10's a lot.
Of the new guys, I think there's probably only 2 Hall of Famers, Adrian Beltre and Joe Mauer. I don't think
Joe Mauer, we just talked about. It's like you could break that down and make an argument against.
I don't think you can make an argument against Joe Mauer. I think what you can then look at is how the hell, because Joe Mauer is likely going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer. I don't think he's going to get, crazy. I think he's going to be in like the low 90% votes. He won an MVP as a catcher in a period of time. We were looking at it. It was like an 8-year run. He was, I think, pretty unanimously the best all-around catcher in baseball. His 2009 season was historic, but you have that, who's going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer. Then you have Jorge Posada, who was the best offensive catcher for a decade and one of the 3 best overall catchers in baseball for that period as well, not even stay on the ballot, which is like the gap there is insane. And I don't understand it. No one's ever explained why Jorge Posada got less than 5% of votes.
It makes no sense. It makes absolutely no sense. So yeah, I don't even know what the argument is here, but yes, do I believe Joe Mauer is a Hall of Famer? I could take the contrarian side and break it down so that you're, with longevity and the amount of at bats that he took as a catcher or starting games, like you could break it down if you wanted to be an asshole. But what I test, Joe Mauer's a Hall of Famer. Joe Mauer was the best catcher in the league for a long period of time.
Yeah.
And when I'm thinking about Hall of Famers, like I do an instant gut check on who it is, and he passes my instant gut check.
And you know what the
I
crazy
don't even need to look
thing
at
is?
the numbers.
As impressive as Adrian Beltre's overall numbers are, I don't get that gut feeling with him. Like, yeah, Hall of Famer. He was a consistent force at third base. I agree, but I don't think Adrian Beltre, oh my God, feared when he stepped in the box. Definitely Hall of Famer. Joe Mauer, yeah, gut check. That's a Hall of Famer. David Wright, no. Bartolo Colon,
but Adrian Beltre
no.
also put the longevity in, which matters. He
I
had
know
good
it
numbers,
matters.
but he also put the longevity in, and he was a Gold Glove third baseman. He was a vacuum over there too, which
but he
isn't
never
sexy, and people don't talk about it as much.
His peak is not impressive, and I get not everyone's peak is like that sort of Joe Mauer's peak, which was almost triple crown. He was batting champion and MVP as a catcher in 2009. Like that.
How many games did he play? How many games did he start as catcher in 2009? Logan, I know you pulled those numbers.
A lot.
On where he was.
Over 100. He was majority catcher. I know he DH'd a bunch, especially later in his career, but
that's where you start having conversations when you want to put up his best offensive statistical career. If he played half of the games or not half of the games, but a third of the games at DH, now you start leaking into the conversation of offensive position players.
109 at catcher.
109. So that's a lot that he didn't catch.
28 at DH.
And then was off the rest of them.
Mm-hmm.
That's a lot.
Sure.
So now you need to compare those numbers to true DHs and third basemen and first basemen who are putting up power numbers as well, because that's whose spot he was taking essentially as a DH.
I mean, he did put up power numbers in his prime offensively, though. He was an all-around great hitter.
Look, I'm not making the argument against it. I'm just saying that's if you're going to start nitpicking players, you got to be looking at the whole thing.
Yeah. A couple other interesting things on here. Obviously, Manny only 33% on his 8th ballot. He's never going to get in. A-Rod 35% third ballot. I think there's an outside chance A-Rod eventually gains enough steam to get in, but it'll be probably his last ballot. Carlos Beltran 46.5%. This is going to be his 2nd ballot. I think he's getting ostracized because of the cheating stuff at the end.
Carlos Beltran, Hall of Famer or not Hall of Famer? Hall of Famer.
I put him in a similar category as Adrian Beltre, where he's a Hall of Famer, but as great as Carlos Beltran was, he's kind of was just like an everyday force, which is great, and I get why those players are in the Hall of Fame, but the peaks of Carlos Beltran and Adrian Beltre are not the peaks of some other players that I get excited about, like
Gary Sheffield.
No. Gary Sheffield also didn't have that.
He was a feared hitter, one of the most feared hitters.
Yeah. I think there's players that aren't even on the ballot anymore that I would vote in, and a lot of them are linked to steroids. But like Manny and A-Rod, to me, both need to be in the Hall of Fame. And talk about feared hitters. Manny was you can't find a more feared hitter than Manny Ramirez in the early 2000s.
Manny Ramirez was the most feared hitter. I shit my pants every time he would come up because I knew he was going to do something.
I would shit my pants when I knew he was coming up 5 batters from now. I'm like, you can't put 2 guys on and have Manny Ramirez coming up in 3 batters. Can't do it.
No.
All right. That was our annual yell about the Hall of Fame, and I'm sure we'll yell about it again when we find out that, some guy voted for, I don't know, why did James Shields get a vote? I'm sure we'll yell about that.
Big game James.
Brandon Phillips. Who voted for Brandon Phillips? What the hell? A lot of former Mets on this list. Colon, Wright, Jose Reyes. Our guy Matt Holliday on the list.
I saw that. And then I started doing it, and then I started counting on my fingers. I'm like, has it really been that long? Yeah,
crazy, right? Crazy.
Wild. Yeah. So We'll see. I think once we get closer to the announcement here, let's dive a little deeper on these guys because it's fun and start ripping them to shreds and then also comparing them to people around, because that's the thing. Like, the bar has changed and the bar is consistently moving, constantly moving. I get consistently and constantly mixed up a lot, but it is moving based on the way that folks are voting and who's on the ballot, I think. And then you look at the whatever the players committee or whatever the hell that thing's called does change the game in like righting some wrongs almost, but also letting in some guys that probably didn't deserve it.
The fun,
but I do hope that Don Mattingly does get in on that ballot because he should get in.
The fun thing about the players now who are having these conversations is I remember all of these players. Yeah. It's really hard to talk about guys from the early 90s and the 80s and obviously anytime before that because I never watched them play. And I do think that is important for Hall of Fame voting, is you actually watched him play year in and year out. You can look at numbers all you want. You can look at Fangraphs and Baseball Reference and how they stacked up against the league. But I think that is a distinction between
there's an eye test and a gut check.
But it also
it's usually backed up by numbers.
Yes, but when you also then can understand, I remember vividly the 2000s baseball, and I remember how I thought of Adrian Beltre, and I remember how I thought of Albert Pujols, and why there is a difference there. And I know in the argument we had, you're like, there shouldn't be a difference. They're either a Hall of Famer or not a Hall of Famer. Somehow there needs to be a difference because we know the difference because we watched them. But we don't really know the difference between someone who played in the 50s, right? So how would that distinction be made?
So then when you're in the Hall of Fame, once you're in the Hall of Fame, have some former player committee of Hall of Famers tier the guys in the Hall of Fame or put different
names. Oh boy, that would be quite.
But you know what? You're doing it with amongst the brethren of the folks that are in, and if you're a Hall of Famer, you should be a Hall of Famer. And I don't want to remember people because they were a first ballot or they got 98% or they got that shouldn't matter, man.
Though. So,
but that shouldn't matter because that is exactly putting the power in the people that we are disgusted with.
I hear you on that, but it is a museum. So when little Billy is going with his dad in the year 2047 to the Hall of Fame,
let the Hall of Famers tell you who the best Hall of Famers were.
Okay.
Yeah.
The best of the best.
Who says no to that? That's the right answer.
The other Hall of Famers. Oh, I thought there was no committee. The actual Hall of Famers vote on it. All the living Hall of Famers are tiering the lists.
Yes.
Okay.
Huh?
Not bad.
You want to put me as president of you want me to move to Cooperstown tomorrow?
That's not bad. That's not a bad thought.
It's called common sense.
It's not a bad idea. All right, that's gonna wrap it up there. We don't have time for the dumb Thanksgiving segment.
Damn,
I don't think anyone's
gonna be
sorry.
Aaron judges the turkey. Okay.
I don't think anyone's gonna be sorry about it. Are
you telling me that Aaron Judge puts you to sleep? Is that what you're saying?
No, what I'm saying is there's no Thanksgiving without turkey, and there's no Yankees without Aaron Judge. That was my thought process there. I was also trying to think of something like shitting the bed, like what makes you shit on Thanksgiving, and then can I make that Gleyber Torres because he's going to get a ground ball and he's going to shit the bed. But anyway, I'll leave you all with that. Have a very happy Thanksgiving. Have a wonderful time off, 4-day weekend, all that stuff. We'll talk to you again next week.
Happy Thanksgiving.